It's the Joel Natale Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studios here on a Thursday. The bluster is waned just enough to allow Dr. Ralph Ford, the Chancellor of Penn State Behrend, to join us here for a conversation. Good to see you, Dr. Ford. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
All righty. So we were kind of, there's a lot of reasons why these universities in our community are important. And I think you guys have a special niche because being a part of the Pennsylvania State University, the land grant university for PA, I mean, it is you hold a unique position in the local economy and the local higher ed milieu, if you will,
We do. And, sometimes we're a little hard to understand. As we say, we're not a branch campus. We're not a satellite campus. We are Penn State here in your backyard. But, of course, Penn State Behrend has its own really special niche as a campus within the Penn State system.
It makes a lot of sense. What I think is really high profile, and I want to start with that, is what's going on at Knowledge Park and some of the new projects and some of the new announcements that have been happening. Let's start with Project Resolve here and that kind of thing and what's going on with some of the new investments and things. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. And Project Resolve, it's been something we've been working on for, I'd say at least 5 years now. And it is a very large vision as to how do we help our economy make the transition to the new economy. I suppose that sounds cliche, but if you think about it, what are the things that are happening? Vehicle electrification is really important, right? Mm-hmm. And plastics, you hear about it in the news every day. Sometimes, you hear these stories that you eat a credit card's worth of plastics every week. That's not true, by the way. In my opinion.
That's good news.
Happy to talk about that. You're not eating a credit card's worth of plastic every week. But there's a real point there. Plastics is a wonderful material, but how do we make sure it stays out of the environment? How do we use it responsibly? We have to figure those things out. These are really hard problems. How do we keep them out of Lake Erie? So that's the grandiose vision of Project Resolve. And how do we keep those jobs here and grow them as well? And the manifestation of that is something known as the Center for Manufacturing Competitiveness that we've secured funding for. So there's a lot to it there.
So Penn State has put skin in the game. The county's put skin in the game. The state has put skin in the game. And I think there's Fed money there too, right?
There's federal money there too. So we have had the support we've got a federal earmark. Senator Fetterman's office has been super helpful in this. I mean, everybody. We're really grateful for all the support we've got. But this is a different type of project. We're building it piece by piece, and we finally got there. So you're right. We've got money from Senator Fetterman's office, particularly for the battery test center. So we're building a battery test center there, particularly focused on large-scale, what we call heavy haul vehicles. Think locomotives, think mining machinery. It has a very different need than if you're building, say, an electric car. It's different than your Tesla and and you have larger problems. So
sure.
Things we call thermal runaway, meaning they burn up easily when you put big stacks of batteries together. So that's a real problem, of course. And so that's one of the legs. And as you said, the county. The county was the first mover, and they came in, and that was very helpful for us. Penn State as well. Government is Pennsylvania State through the RACP program.
Stretch it out, because what people don't really realize is that in Erie, you all are doing research, and I think we have a number now that it's close to $10 million in expenditures for research at Behrend?
Yeah, every year. And that's a number we've grown steadily over the last decade. So we went from about $2 million to $10 million.
What would that encompass, like when you're talking about spending that money on research?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a funny way that universities, you have income and you have expenditures, but the way that is traditionally held is you look at all of the funds that you spend on research, and it's kind of a well-defined way that the federal government does that, and they count research expenditure. So to put it in perspective, Penn State University is, I think, $1.3 billion in research funding or research expenditures. We're about $10 million of that, and a growing part of that.
And they
portfolio.
consider Penn State as a top-tier research facility.
Penn State's in the top 25 in the United States. So that comes because you're bringing in grants, you're getting companies to sponsor your research. So it's a signal, of course, that people are interested in your research, and that research drives economic development. So, research is everywhere from very fundamental pie-in-the-sky ideas to those ideas that you're trying to get into the marketplace in 2 to 3 years. And that tends to be where we have a better niche.
Is it focus over some of your successful areas? Like, I mean, you guys are known for plastics engineering and so on. Is that where we're seeing some of that in research dollars?
Yeah, we have four pillars we think about.
Yeah.
So first of all, plastics and polymers and material. Now I'll go further than that. Materials development, working with metals manufacturers. We do a lot in that space. That drives a lot of it. The other leg is environmental. The Pennsylvania Sea Grant, which sits out at the Tom Ridge Environmental Center, is a federally funded research center. Not everyone knows. We run that, and we have for a long period of time, and brought that here about 25 years ago. So that's another leg. The third one is Susan Hurt Hagen Core, which is our Center for Outreach and Research Evaluation. We do a lot of work with the community, everything from trying to address substance abuse to working. Large part of it is working with at-risk youth.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of work and research to be done there.
That's not something that you think of. You think of engineering and business at Penn State, but you're really making strides in social sciences like that.
Oh yeah, we have a very strong psychology program, School of Humanities and Social Sciences.
Yeah.
And through the generosity of the Hagen family, particularly Susie Hurt Hagen, who's of course passed away now, but she started that. She helped us start that center with
it's data based, right? I mean, really
data driven. We first started looking at teen pregnancy, particularly in rural areas,
right.
and had, if you recall, So what we look at changes, and right now a lot of it is, I say, put it in layman's term, how do we help students develop resilience or grit? And that's really important.
There's a lot going on with at-risk youth, and to be able to really understand with the data, with that direct connection. And my understanding is, again, with our conversations with Dr. Hodge, there's a mentorship, there's an ability for your students, for your undergrads, to really learn while they're being lights to these young kids.
That's exactly right, and you hit it right on the head. So James Hodge, he's the director of that center, has been for a while, and I'll point out he's a product of Behrend. He got his undergraduate degree, went and got his graduate degree, but you hit something that I think is unique about Behrend, and that is the ability for students to have an undergraduate research experience that's very meaningful. So we have a number of students working in CORE, the Center for Outreach and Research Evaluation. They go into the community, they work with students, they get paid while they're doing that, and research shows, and our experience shows that when a student's engaged in research or has a job on campus or an internship, their likelihood of success is far, far greater.
Yeah. And having that knowledge part, right there, being fully invested, that's got to pay a lot of dividends for undergrads and grads, right?
It does, and it goes back to your, we kind of veered, and that's great. But your original question was around Knowledge Park. So Knowledge Park is a business and technology park. That's about 20 companies there. I say 500 to 600 people come there and call it their home for work each and every day. And we've had, I'll go back, we had a number of, I think, really great successes in the last 5 years. Truck-like Corporation moved their corporate headquarters there, so I don't want to forget that one. And a lot of the work they do is around vehicle electrification and how do you reduce the energy consumption on vehicles. Also, remote monitoring of they do a lot with, as the name implies, trucks. But if you think about blueberries being shipped in the back of a truck as a simple example, you're worried about what the temperature is there for the whole trip. So how do you monitor that, and how do you figure things out? So they're working on They don't just
See, I
work
thought
on.
they were like whirling lights on the top of the. Don't they do that or
Well,
no?
well, they do. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
fascinating story, right? So they started as this company in Jamestown, New
Yeah.
York, where really simple. They look at a tractor trailer and you look at that little round light that goes on the back. They made replacement lights, but where they really started to, and then their business grows into other
Sure.
replacement parts for tractor trailers. But then they're the first company to really think about putting LED lights
Okay.
into automobiles, in both the rear lights that you have, but also forward lighting. And then forward lighting, your headlights becomes more complex, where you're able to adapt to what are the ambient conditions that are out there, and and then they parlay that into other more and more advanced. So yeah, I say Truck Light is it's a great company, but maybe the name's a bit of a misnomer.
Right.
Yeah.
Kyocera made the big bet on Bliley.
That's correct. So Kyocera is currently building a 50,000 square foot technology and manufacturing center. It's moving along nicely.
Yeah.
Should open in May, and it's well on track to do that. So they saw here in Erie a really interesting company. Bliley has a huge history that goes back to World War II. Build timing devices, so
Oscillators.
quartz oscillators, right?
This is at the edge of my knowledge base, Doc. I mean, it's like I know because I once bought an oscillator from a Bliley. I worked with my son on a 8th grade science project to make an AM transmitter.
Exactly.
On a circuit board.
Well,
and we had a Bliley oscillator.
You wouldn't be transmitting what we're talking, here today,
Right.
without an oscillator, which basically produces a clock, a frequency.
Sure.
And my quartz watch has a really cheap oscillator in there, but they're really good. And
Yeah.
if you apply electricity to a quartz crystal, it puts off an electronic frequency, and vice versa. You can move it in the other direction too. But then it gets far more complicated if you think about the needs for right now. A big area of growth is satellites.
Okay,
And there are
sure.
a lot of cube satellites that are going up. Amazon, all of these companies are putting up their own satellite clouds, and eventually they may well replace your 5G towers, because you'll get better coverage that way. But anyways, they have demanding needs, or any satellite that goes into space. So when you're looking at a package that has to say, operate in space at very extreme temperatures, the design becomes very complex, and it becomes a whole different. But the fundamental idea is still the same. You're producing a clock, a timing signal that you need in every computer, every mobile phone in this world.
It can't be underestimated, the concept of that foreign direct investment, of a Japanese company saying, let's look at Erie, PA, and this company to just go all in on it. I mean that's a significant economic development win for Erie.
It is, and I think, sometimes people might look at it the other way and say, "Oh my goodness, what's this foreign company doing here?" Well, first of all, they do invest through their U.S. subsidiary, so it's technically Kyocera AVX, or we just call it KAVX.
Yeah.
But in working with the Japanese leaders, and even up in very recent discussions, they're super clear. Kyocera has a philosophy that they're here to help also build the local economy, and their idea is not to bring in all labor from Japan. When sometimes they do that, right?
Yeah.
But to help build the workforce here, and for us to grow it, and they're really, really clear in that philosophy. So, but it is investment that we need. And they have the ability to take this company from here to there, and they saw the real opportunity.
Dr. Ralph Ford, the Chancellor of Penn State, Behrend, is with us. Take our first break here. It's Talk Erie. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. We are talking meds and eds. We're specifically with Dr. Ralph Ford. He is the Chancellor of Penn State Behrend here in Harbor Creek Township. I love the history of this campus, and recently there's been some chatting about the anniversaries, right? We talked about last time.
Yeah, we did talk about it. Last year was our 75th anniversary.
It's amazing.
It is.
The what they used to call the Behrend Center, and now it's this, vibrant, full 4-year undergrad as well as graduate schools. We were talking about some of the research that's happening there, but let's talk about some of the changes on campus. I think this is old news, but there's a new Erie Hall, right? When did that open up?
Oh, geez. I think we're getting close to 2 years
Has
now.
it been already?
It'll be 2 years this March, I believe. Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, and then you've done some work on Glen Hill Gardens. Talk about some of that stuff that's going on.
Sure, I'd love to. I mean, we'll start with the old Erie Hall, and I'd like to, tell a little bit of the history. So the old Erie Hall was originally, I think, completed about 1952, so it was 70 plus years old. And if you went in there, it was like a real it was like a scene out of Hoosiers, right?
The walls would shake during a basketball game, right?
That's right. Yeah. And teams feared coming in there back in the day, and that's true. I still hear people say that. But also, back in the 50s and 60s, it was a big social place as well. Plays were held there, dances. After classes, people would meet there. So many stories of alumni who said they met their spouse there.
Huh.
That's kind of one of the neat pieces of history. But its time was past, and we thought about either reconstructing it or in the end, it made sense to take it down.
Okay. And
then we built a brand new Erie Hall, and it is a beautiful space. If you haven't been there, it's changed the campus, I must say, and that's,
what's it focus on now?
So now it's health and wellness. I mean, it's a center for the students, and it's not the student athletes are largely focused over in the Junker Center that we've had since the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. So this is much more a recreation and fitness space for the campus community at large. There are classes going on there, spin classes, of course, plenty of places to work out, gyms. Pickleball, I've never played that, but we got pickleball courts, and they're super, popular. Excuse me, with the students. Right. And I hear, truly that the stories we hear are students going over there a couple times a day. Maybe they go over there, they meet their friends, they work out, they go back and study, and they come back. So it is, really become a hub of the campus.
What does it take these days, as far as amenities are concerned, to draw interest from students that have a lot of choices these days?
Well, I mean, that is a good question, too. And it's true, right? Because that works against, you've always got to stay up to date.
Yeah.
And it's costly, right? And that drives the cost of higher ed up. And
does everybody need a climbing wall anymore? Or?
I don't know if everybody needs a climbing wall. We don't have a climbing wall there. Of course, you got one across the street right here. It's super, super popular.
Yeah.
But you do need a place for the students.
Yeah.
Food is important too.
Oh, I bet.
Food choices, and it's it's perennial. I think on a college campus that students will complain about the food, but I we really have evolved that. We have 3 or 4 of our own chefs.
Sure.
On campus as well. So those things are important. The other thing that drives students, of course, to come is the quality of the degree programs and what their opportunities are after they graduate.
There's no doubt. Talk about housing, because you guys have actually had to build some housing in the past 5 years or so, right?
So our most recent hall is Tripp Hall. And it's probably getting close to 7-8 years old.
Now?
But my God, it's beautiful. It's nothing like the residence halls. Like when, I'd say when you and I went to school, and the idea there is international focused as well. So we try to say students who, not just international students, but American students who want to interact with international. There's a kitchen down there. They can cook. We have programming that's international related there as well to introduce students to different cultures. So it's really neat space. and the rooms are spacious, and they
Yeah.
uh, just really nice places for the students. And and the other thing that you see on college campus now, a lot of collaboration spaces.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's a space where students can go work with others in a small area, set up their laptops. So we built that into residence halls. Increasingly, you see those spaces on campus as well, too.
Yeah, library and that kind of thing, or
Library, student union, even the academic spaces. We find, we sometimes you make some simple changes. Like our science complex is about 20 years old. It's a nice space. We've got this atrium that was underutilized. We had some furniture out there.
You're talking about in Burke, or
No, not down in Burke, but down on the west end of campus, if you know
Gotcha.
where the original plastics lab was,
Okay.
Roach Hall and
Yeah.
that area. So Roach Hall, but we found a few years ago, all it took was changing the type of furniture and making it more inviting, and then students really started using it more. And now you go down there and you see them sitting there all the time, working and in between classes.
How does the attractiveness of the city integrate with your campus attracting students? I mean, is there a lot of synergy that way? And I've got like 60 seconds here. Yeah.
Yes, and we can come back to it. Maybe if we need to. I think there's synergy, and it depends on the students. I mean, we have a number of students who are attracted by the fact that we've got a great outdoor space. You can go hiking 5-7 miles. You get the Wintergreen Gorge. That there's a lot that's attractive to that, but the idea that they can be close to a city, particularly for international students, that connection. So everything that's happening, here downtown is important to us as well.
All righty. Dr. Ralph Ford is with us. News is next. Stay with us. It's Talk Erie. Thanks for tuning in. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio. Dr. Ralph Ford, the Chancellor of Penn State Behrend, is with us, and again, I really enjoy learning more about the contributions to our economy, the contributions to our quality of life that the universities bring. And Shani was talking about her daughter who is in theater. Again, I'm thinking of Emily Casano. I mean, an amazing. Faculty member, involved in making the theater program, all that it's ever been. Because again, there's been a rich tradition of theater at Behrend all these years.
There has been, and people, we don't have a theater major, but it's really important to our students. And Emily just keeps elevating that.
Sure.
I tell her it's absolutely true. The performances just seem to get better and better all the time, and the crowds grow. And the students do it just because they want to. Right?
Yeah,
it's important to them. And
again, that for what is this is this land grant. We do ag. We do engineering and business. No. I mean, it's a fullness of life that you're trying to portray.
Yeah, that's right. Whether it's creative writer readings going on campus. I think we've got one tonight, and
cool.
Our students. And we invite people in from the outside, speaker series. Yeah, I mean, a university brings a whole set of cultural amenities, we hope, and an experience to students that's, well beyond the classroom.
I like what Dr. Harbin's doing with his colleagues over in the business school with the Center for Family Business. We've talked a lot about that on this show. And the idea of that Erie is full of these mom pops, these family-owned businesses, not so small, mind you, but the great contagion is that if there's not a third generation young person to take over the business and there's no succession plan, we lose that economic engine.
We do, and the work they do is, that center has just been, if I may say something, has taken off and been a huge success. That's it. Erie region has such a rich history of companies, just like you said, that big and small, but they all suffer. They all face the same issue, and that's who's going to take over in the next generation. And it's not easy questions. You're dealing with your brother and sister sometimes, and there's a whole lot going on there. So, the programming that they have, the peer networks that they built was really important. They bring together CEOs and leaders from companies who have similar issues, and it really makes a difference. And then also, what are the financial tools? What are the tools you have that you can keep the company here, maintain ownership, and all the different structures that may take? Because the reality is, once you do sell it to out of town, you hope it stays, but more than likely we see that long-term the company won't stay.
It's interesting to me that Penn State Behrend, and maybe some of the other campuses are changing too, but we were always kind of that special campus in the Penn State system because we offered the 4-year degrees. You didn't have to leave after sophomore year and so on. And does that mean that we get a bit more attention maybe than our peers from the University Park? I mean,
well, that's a loaded question. I'd say no, I just joke. Look, I will say, I think you've hit it right on the head. Behrend has grown up we've got a lot of campuses, and of course I'm going to say Behrend is really special, but we are in a lot of ways, and I'll tell you why. I think I've started to put it together. One is we've been a place of first for many, many years, right? We were the first place to become a 4-year college back in 1973.
It's been that long. Wow.
And by the way, our students, there's always a fascinating story behind that. A number of our students who came back from the Vietnam War didn't want to go to University Park, and they lobbied the Board of Trustees for us to be able to offer.
I did not know that story. Wow.
And think about the 1948 burst is after World War II. So there's a lot of those neat stories that come out of it. We built Knowledge Park 25 years ago, PAC grants. So we're always looking to, there's an appreciation of who Behrend is in the
and
university.
And there's some in-migration now, too, right?
Oh,
At junior year? I don't know from University Park, but from the other Commonwealth campuses?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
And that's a growing part right
Is
now,
it?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, we work a lot with our Western campuses. No, so the reality is Behrend has a very, I'll answer it seriously, good reputation in the university. He has understood what we bring. We always focus on, return on investment in whatever we do. We want to show value in everything that we do. But, yeah, we're working with, Penn State Beaver, Fayette, all of them, they have 4-year programs, but a greater portion of their students are going to leave after 2 years, and Behrend is a great destination for them.
Part of, I'm sure, what that draw is this open lab. Can you talk about that and what that means for just student real experience?
Yeah, open lab is an idea that has really just developed over the course of a decade, and probably a number of people thinking about it. And the idea is, I say in its simplest form, and it's not that we're all labs. It's think of us as a laboratory where we can experiment, but the students are working on problems that go beyond the classroom. And I would say that I can always make up a real world simulation.
Okay.
That's great, right? But when I solve a real problem with an external entity, then the learning even takes it to the next level. So if a company comes to me and they say, I need to develop a marketing plan, marketing students, and you help them and you're able to go figure out what their needs are and you put together a real solution, you're that much further ahead than a classroom exercise. Super valuable, right? We need to take this continuum of learning from basic to more complex senior projects. The work we talked about earlier in Cora, where you're solving community problems. And that's the differentiator, is that we're in a community where we're blessed, where there's a lot of companies, a lot of organizations that want to work with us, and that provides an opportunity for learning that if we were isolated in some small little town, we probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And this goes right to the Beehive, Jake Marsh, and what's going on in the Innovation Commons there too, right?
That's exactly it. So the Innovation Beehive is poster child for Open Lab.
Right.
Students working there, entrepreneur, somebody has an idea, walks in off the street, and we've got a lot of success stories. I'd like to design this product, or I'd like to develop this system. And we work with them, and a lot of times, help them in ways they didn't expect, bring products to market, develop patents, work with the other universities in the process.
That's got to be rewarding for you. I understand you were one of the initiators of that whole Beehive concept.
Yeah, I think, again, I always like to give credit, but it came out of the idea of, at the time, a decade plus ago, the idea of building maker spaces on college campuses was really strong. And we wanted to do that. And then we did see an opportunity when the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority, and they were key, put out this call for how would we grow the economy, and we applied for that grant. And the whole idea was, how do we bring the universities together, where I'd say, I'll take some credit. We had those ideas, myself, Amy Bridger, and others. But the team really took it and expanded it well beyond what I had ever envisioned. So I'll say, it was nice to be there at the start, but Jake, Amy, I saw Brad Gleason from Gannon University last night at the Accelerator event. They're the people who've made it happen.
Well, and it's really working well, and you've got these young and startups that are like getting all of this free stuff and free advice and free guidance, and it's hedging the bet for success for these startups.
It is, and it's giving them a resource they would otherwise maybe have to pay for, be hard for them to get. Yeah, it's a win-win-win if I've ever seen one.
We've been talking a lot over the last couple of years about the demographic cliff, and so there's a couple things to deal with here. Pennsylvania, in and of itself, is in declining population. There are less young people, 18 to 24, period, in all across the United States. And so you start reading the Chronicle of Higher Education, and you get these news reports about, generally small universities and colleges failing. Is it up to one a week now?
It's close to that, maybe.
Oh my
I think it's 25, at least 25 or 30 a year. How's that?
Okay, so
and I saw an article yesterday, a few days ago, in a study that was published. It said it's going to accelerate for the next few years, so we'll see.
Yeah. Penn State is in a pretty strong position, but not immune to the lack of students.
No, nobody's immune from what's going on in the higher education industry. And I'll add, there's even there's a not only is it fewer students, it's also fewer students. The market share is going down, right? So there's a greater skepticism of higher education out there. Right. We've seen that in survey. So more students, and and there's an argument, should be looking at other career paths, whether it's the trades and everything. So not everything requires a college education. Now that being said, yeah, we're doing pretty well. And we've managed to continue to grow slowly in the last 3-4 years.
So you guys are in growth mode.
Oh, yeah. We've come out of it since the pandemic. The last 2 years in particular overall, but our first-year classes have been where we want them to be, kind of pre-pandemic numbers. So we're happy about that. Knock on wood. It's a challenging environment. But, you really have to, in my opinion, in this market, as a public institution, be able to deliver for the students on career opportunities.
Are you finding that you have to, when you talk about maker spaces, you have to be a bit more pragmatic, in your offerings, whether it's the 3D printers or the working with a guy like Jake Marsh, where the kids are integrated right with just that whole thing of the separation from the theory to the practical has really shrunk.
It's really shrunk, right? And if you can get to the practical, and I'll give you another example. So you're right in the Innovation Commons where we can see them making things. But the other thing is, you're aware of the Intrary Student Managed Fund, which is right. So our students are managing a portfolio of $1.4 million in the stock market.
They should publish that index.
I mean,
how do I get the knowledge?
It's a trade secret. I kid you not. They have their own algorithms, and they've developed them over the years.
But they're making hits, huh? Wow.
And they're and then now part of that, the beauty of that is once we got to $1 million, the guidelines were that we could then take some of it and we feed it back in terms of scholarships to students in the finance program.
Very cool.
So if you're thinking about going into the financial world where you want to be a financial advisor, or many of our students go to Wall Street, if they choose to do so, how could you get any better experience than that?
Wow. And it's, you can work on Wall Street without going to the Ivies, and all that.
Oh,
sounds like.
Absolutely. I go to New York City and meet some of our alumni who were successful there. Vincent Treary, the namesake for the fund, was on Wall Street, was Carl Icahn's, right-hand man for I think a little less than 20 years, but he's a Behrend accounting graduate from the 80s, I believe. So, yeah, it's all about hard work and being in the right place at the right time, knowing your stuff.
How should parents and potential undergrad students be thinking about college? Because you know how things swing, the pendulum swings. We have this big backlash. We need to be into trades. You have even Josh Shapiro, the governor, shaking his fist. We're gonna eliminate all these positions that need 4-year degrees, and they're touting that as a badge of honor. There is a happy middle there somewhere.
Yeah, and I don't know how it's hard to explain how you get to that happy middle. I think, the idea of opening up more jobs for people who that are well-paying, for those that really don't need a college education. You shouldn't put the credential on a position that doesn't need it. So that makes a lot of sense, I think, what they're doing at the state level and others. And I don't know all the details, but that doesn't particularly concern me. I say that's great because it probably creates more opportunity for all. But for those considering a university, I think that if I wouldn't believe the narrative that higher education doesn't pay. I think the statistics really do show that, although you have to be careful, right? So you really do need to make sure you go to an institution where there is a lot of opportunity. I think you need to make sure it's the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And you have to be successful. I mean, when you're there. So if you get there and you find after a year you're not succeeding, you got to do something about it. Either figure out how to succeed, and we'll try to help you there. And I don't mean that in a cavalier way, but you hate to see someone persisting when they're not being successful. So maybe they should find something else It's not saying we want you to leave. In fact, I got many great success stories where a student who came in, failed out in their first year. They took 3 or 4 years off and came back and said, now I'm mentally ready to do this. Because every student we accept, we believe, has the ability to be successful. And that's what we want. And if you can graduate with a degree, and maybe, you want to go to graduate school, or maybe you want to go into theater. There are a lot of different things out there that you might look at. So not everyone goes directly into a career.
Are you having to put more into, that student success, wrap around, helping with mental health, helping with, academic guidance? Some kids are not, well, they probably wouldn't be selected if they had marginal grades, but, they're just not ready academically for a Penn State University degree.
I mean, that is an area of large focus for us. And I think across higher ed, but we have really put a lot of resources there. So first of all, expanded our personal counseling center. Personal counseling, really important for so many of our students and their families when they come in. Lots of stories I get from students about how that center helped them. But in terms of the academic services, one thing that's, a bit of a generalization, but if a student's not being successful in their first semester, their first 6-8 weeks, that's a bad indicator. So we do a lot to try to make sure in that first 6-8 weeks we have as much contact as we can. And
where's that coming from? Is that from profs? Is it from another staffer?
Yes, all of the above. So we have a care team that stands
care team.
Stands ready. So we have an online system where all faculty have to go on and report. Is a student going to class? Is there something going on? We ask them to report if a student's not showing up or if they seem like they need some help. So we have a number of ways to bring them in. Sometimes though we that's the big problem. How do we not miss them?
Yeah.
And that helps a lot, and we've got some data to show that. But then there are sometimes the student who just is resistant to and they don't want to do it. It's their first time away from home, and they're out, whatever the circumstance may be. And that's kind of the hard one to see sometimes, because you're really trying and you're not getting any result. But it does have impact, and focusing on retaining students is just as important as bringing students in.
There's no doubt.
If not more, right? They're there, and they're paying students.
Sure. It occurs to me that it would be really helpful for those incoming freshmen to get involved in something, join up for the play, or, intramural sports, or if you are an athlete to, try out for something, but, or the book club or the Minecraft club, or I don't know. You got to gotta be sticky, right?
It's got to be sticky, right? So it's engagement.
Yeah.
And that engagement can take a whole lot of forms. In fact, if you come to our first year orientation or freshman orientation, we stand up a lot and say, get involved, and but it works. And a student, so it's not all about studying, and it's about, acclimating, have a social environment, whatever that may be. As you said, we have 400 plus student athletes on campus. Division III, they're not there to be in a Division I sport, but it's a huge part of our culture there.
Sure.
And they have a higher average GPA than...
The busier you are, the better you do with your grades.
That's right. You got to force yourself to study.
It's a crazy counterintuitive thing, but it's true.
Probably to a point where you break, right?
Right.
And, I'll just tell a story. We all have... I have a good friend, and he ultimately succeeded. But I remember this kid when I went to school, and he was so determined to get a 4.0. He studied day and night. And I use it, and he did that for about 2 semesters, and then his world came apart. And he still remains a good friend. He left first semester, came back, we remained, and then he found a whole different way of approaching school, and it wasn't to get a 4.0 and everything, and he had to not study day in and day out, and you just can't do that. And I'm not saying everyone does, but you got to find that balance.
If folks want to find out more about Penn State, or arrange a visit, knock on admissions, or
it's easy. Go to look at our admissions website. We've got a beautiful campus. We'd love to host you. You can meet with a faculty member, meet students, a lot of different ways. Andrea Kunkel is our director of admissions and enrollment management, and she's got a great team up there, and we'll welcome you there.
Beautiful. Dr. Ralph Ford, Chancellor of Penn State, Behrend. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
It is 5 minutes in front of 5. Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, making our way toward the news at the top of the hour. It is 4:50.